Okay, so hey everyone, welcome to the Be Insightful in Technology podcast. I'm your host, Shakiria Johnson, also known as Shy, and I'm here to help you gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology. So, on today's episode, kind of one that hits home because she has been one of my inspirations for becoming a network engineer. And I reached out to her back in high school and she responded, and that's kind of like one of the things that kept me pushing, which is crazy to see it happening like now. And I reached back out to her because I wanted her to be on the episode. And I really I'm really going to be a little selfish on this episode. I might ask her a little bit more questions because it is so exciting to see some more women in tech and them flourishing out here. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and then we'll get into the podcast.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deirra Footman. I'm a network engineer. I've been in the industry a little over 10 years now. I think approaching 12, which is shocking. And I've worked across different industries, so education, like K through 12, healthcare, service providers. So I've done a lot of stuff. I love network engineering. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to it, and I'm looking forward to getting into the podcast. And thank you for inviting me.
I appreciate you for coming on. Oh yeah, so where can people find you? LinkedIn, social medias. What are you most comfortable having out there?
I'm most active on Twitter at CCIEby30. And that's pretty much my handle across all social media. So Instagram, Facebook, which I don't use that much, but Instagram, Facebook, and my LinkedIn is my full name, Deirra J. Footman. So you can definitely reach out to me there too.
All right, cool. So let's get into how you got started. So you said you've been in the industry for about 12 years now.
Yes.
So how has that been for you?
It's been a lot of ups, a lot of downs. I got started actually in high school. The high school I attended in Baltimore City offered both like college prep work and career. They call it career technology education. So pretty much in your sophomore year of high school, you got to pick a career pathway. And they had all types of things like childcare, culinary arts, cosmetology, business, all of that good stuff. And when I initially applied, I applied under graphic design. I've always had a love of technology and art, so I thought the best way to marry the two was to do graphic design. And my freshman year, the graduating seniors gave a presentation on their final projects in their career pathway programs, and the Cisco students came up. And at the time, when I thought of working in technology, I thought that meant coding or computer repair or cybersecurity, which I was interested in all of those. I just hadn't really taken the time to explore what each meant. So when they presented, it kind of dawned on me like, wow, there are people out here who make the actual internet work. I want to do that. I want to know, like, that never was a thought in my mind that there are people that made the internet work. So I switched from graphic design to the Cisco program. It was a 3-year program. Our sophomore year was spent pretty much learning all about computers, the ins and outs, how they worked. Our final project that year was to build an actual computer. And then junior year, we got into like networking basics, the basics of routing. Pretty much, if anyone remembers the old CCNA exam, it used to be 2 parts. There was IC and D1 and then IC and D2. So pretty much all of junior year was spent on IC and D1. And then senior year was a good portion of IC and D2. We didn't cover all of it, but that was because of the second semester of our senior year, we got the opportunity to do internships. And my internship was actually at the school system headquarters on the network team. So for 4 hours a day, half of the school day, I would go to school in the morning, eat lunch, and then go intern. And I did pretty well at it. I applied for the summer internship program after graduation and got to keep my job at the school system. And then they converted me to a contractor role. So that actually became my first job.
Oh, okay. So you were doing that into your senior year, or was that after your graduation?
So I got the internship my senior year, and then we graduated and they offered a bunch of us, they're like, hey, the city offers a summer internship program. If you would like to come back, we would love to have you back, fill out this paperwork and we'll get you back over here. So I kept the internship into the summer. And then once summer was over, they're kind of like, hey, we really like what you're doing. We want to offer you a contract role. So that became my first job.
Oh, okay. So it's pretty cool that you mentioned that because that's kind of like the same route that I took going through like our career academy. And was it? I did marketing and IT my first year. I dropped marketing to do primarily IT. In like our first year, we went over kind of like we studied from the A plus and we were making like desktop PCs. And then our second year was networking, but we were also moving on to like laptops. So we still kind of went through some A plus stuff as well. But then we were primarily doing networking. And it was like the network plus the CompTIA certs. And then the last year was like complete like Cisco networking where we were focusing on the CCNA. So that one was it was pretty fun. Like I'm glad that you had like the career academy because I don't hear that many people talk about going to like their technical school pretty much during high school and getting that early exposure.
Yeah, it was really good. I feel like I learned a lot and there wasn't as much pressure because, you are studying it, you're allowed to make mistakes. It's not like, and this is, it's definitely a different pressure when you kind of like self-study with no guidance and you get your first job and you're kind of like, oh no, I messed up something. It was really great to just be able to, explore in the lab, have some support and guidance and just really be able to learn that as a student.
Okay, so I want to ask you since you mentioned like you were into art as well, you wanted to mesh the two. Did you ever feel like you were still being able to add that art factor when you chose the IT industry? Like, were you still adding that art in there?
I think to a certain extent, it came later on once I got more into actually the design aspect of networking. So really designing solutions, taking a problem statement and kind of brainstorming with my coworkers or even on my own, just doing research about, what's the best way to resolve this issue at hand.
Yes. Okay, so let me see. So that internship that you had kind of like out of high school where you were working, during school and then you decided to keep it after, was there anything that made it exciting that you were able to start working so soon?
In the beginning, honestly, it was just like I was just happy to have a job like out of high school while I figured out the college thing because I really didn't want to go back to college. I wanted to take some time off and it was nice to have a job. Um, the as far as the work, it was pretty boring in the beginning. I was literally just showing up because I was happy to like be able to touch a switch or something. But in the beginning, the work was very much all the work the senior engineers didn't want to do. So a lot of data gathering, a lot of working in spreadsheets, a lot of just reviewing documentation and cleaning it up. And it was super boring, but I am grateful for it because I got to build a good foundation. But yeah, work-wise, it was boring. It was grunt work. It was all the work the senior engineers didn't want to do. It was tickets. It was boring at first. But I'm glad I stuck with it. It did get exciting once I actually started getting to work on projects.
Okay, so how has that position like helped you towards your current ones? Like that growth over time, each position you've stepped into, how's that helped you in your present?
Yeah, so I stayed there for about 5 years. And we were such a small team that we had our specialty like domains that we were, points of contact for, but we really had to know a little bit of everything. So I had to know a little bit of voice. I had to know a little bit of like data center, wireless,
because just in case somebody was out or, you know, something unfortunate happened, we could, you know, keep things up and running for the school system. So that position pretty much laid the groundwork for every job I've gotten. Pretty much at this point, any job I've gotten has related back to some project that I worked on there and some skill that I learned there. So it was a really great place to build that foundation, because we were a small team. There wasn't a lot of money for like bringing in consulting services. If we really had to, we could, but for the most part, we were encouraged to just go figure out how this thing works and figure out how to get it installed and up and running and how it can benefit the school district.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Like I've heard that from someone else who works in the school system and does like networking, where it's just like you have to be able to learn it in-house before like going outside is like last resort. So, like you get that overall fundamental, and it's like you kind of can become the jack of all trades within networking.
Yep.
Like you pick up when someone else is down, and that's a really good approach to it, because I know at bigger companies where it's just like you stuck in like one thing and that's your specialty.
Yeah, that's what you do. You're siloed.
So when you're able to do all of this stuff, like what kept you motivated when the job was boring?
Pretty much, I was just generally curious. I did get to the point where I was talking to my manager, like, okay, I've been doing this for, 6 months. I feel pretty confident in it. What do I need to do to get to the next level to start working on the cool stuff? And just really finding ways to just insert myself when meetings and conversations were being had. Like, oh, hey, I'm really interested in that. When we would have team meetings and the senior engineers would be talking about what they were working on, I would just, volunteer, like, hey, can I shadow you with that? Can I learn a little bit more about that? And I was very fortunate to be in an environment that encouraged that. I have worked in environments where that just wasn't looked at correctly. If we talk about the annoying side of working in tech, especially as a woman, where you run into gatekeepers who kind of look at that like, no, this is my stuff. You go get your own stuff. But luckily there wasn't any of that there. There's a lot of politics, which of course comes with working in a local government type agency. But for the most part, as far as working with the team, it was encouraged that you show initiative, be curious, ask questions. So that's what I did. And I definitely had to get my CCNA before they would trust me to do like projects on my own. But I accomplished that and was able to start taking on a little bit more responsibility.
So how long did it take you to get your CCNA?
It took me about 9 months-ish. I took it when it was still 2 parts. So the ICND one, I failed twice before I passed. And that was the first time I kind of knew I was going to fail. I just wanted to get a feel for the test, and kind of have a better idea of what I was walking into, because up to that point, I hadn't taken an actual Cisco exam yet. So I wanted to get a feel for the exam, see where I was. The second time I was devastated. I was just like, I expected to pass. I got a really close to passing score. I think I was within like 10 or 15 points of passing.
What? So that really
yeah.
I actually don't know.
So I was definitely in my feelings about it. But I just kind of, once I let myself feel what I needed to feel, I just, picked up the score report and was just like, all right, what do I need to really spend extra time on? And at that time, it was a lot of routing and WAN technologies, because that just wasn't something I was working on. I was mostly prioritizing switching and anything related to switching work, a little bit of wireless here and there, but definitely no routing and no WAN technologies, because that just wasn't something. In an organization like that, it was pretty much just set it and forget it. And then we actually had a third party who was managing it eventually. So outside of being able to just go in and, do a little bit of troubleshooting, check to make sure routes are there. I wasn't doing any actual configuration of routing. So I had to spend a lot of time doing some labs around that. And then I eventually passed. And then I took a little bit of a break and then spent the summer studying IC&D2, and I passed that on the first time.
Well, congratulations on those though. Like, what is it going through exams? Like, how many have you really put your time and effort into? Like, I know your CCIE by30, that's like the goal, but what are some other exams that you've looked at and have put in some energy and effort into to kind of prepare you for that?
So earlier on, once I passed my CCNA, and I've talked about this, I feel like I kind of if I could go back, I would do it differently. But I did what I thought was best at the time. I really started focusing on just studying what I needed to know for the job. So that was a lot of specific, just technology specific stuff. I was in an organization that wasn't actually a Cisco shop, so I was learning another vendor at the same time. But other certs I've done is like the CCDA, which is the Design Associate. I've done and then I've done a couple of specialty certs, like I was certified in SolarWinds, because that was a really big product that we were using. But for the most part, I kind of just shifted down to focusing on studying what I needed to know to get my job done. And now I'm studying for my CCNP in enterprise. I think it's enterprise networking now. Cisco's changed the name so many times. It's the enterprise core, and then advanced routing services. Those are the two exams. So, and then once I complete those, I'm planning to pivot more into security. A lot of my background has focused on some network security like projects, and it's really something I'm super interested in. And I would like to learn more and pivot away from networking a little bit and go into doing more network security type work.
Okay, so it's good that like you talk about like the different certifications, because I know majority of times like being in networking, you know the main ones, or it's just like, you know, the Cisco certs, the CompTIA certs, stuff like that. When you talk about SolarWinds, like at my previous employer, we use SolarWinds a lot. And I didn't really like, that was my first time encountering it. I didn't even know they had a certification for it. But then it's just like, there are probably so many certifications for like almost every other application you can use. There's like a X-Firm cert or something. There's probably, so it's just so many different things that it's like you can be caught off guard and distracted. So how do you stay focused? How do you stay focused with going on this track? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna get this certification. But say you change jobs and they're doing a completely different technology than the things that you're studying. Like when you said you were doing something like a different vendor than Cisco. How did you stay focused on keeping that going?
It's definitely hard because I think, and I've struggled with this, and this is a question I get asked a lot on Twitter, like how do you manage your personal goals from what you need to know professionally? And I will admit I haven't been the best at that. But in recent years, I've tried to be a little bit more intentional with the jobs I take to make them align a little bit more with my personal goals. So I'm just not all over the place. But at that time, I just prioritized what I needed to know to get my job done. In hindsight, I probably would have had a little bit more better balance. Maybe just had some days designated specifically for studying other Cisco certs. I really wish that back then I had done my CCNP and just kept, going on the Cisco track, but I took the break. But if I were to go back, I would do a much better job of kind of splitting up my time. So maybe, studying my Cisco stuff, at night and just being like, you know what, it's 5 o'clock. I'm done with work. I need to get this CCNP. I'm gonna spend 2 hours studying that. And then just carving out some more time in my workday where necessary to study whatever's going on at work. And that kind of ebbs and flows, I think. I think that when you get a project with a new technology and you kind of know it's coming and you're in an organization that doesn't have training dollars, That's another thing I've been more intentional about. Side note is picking organizations. In the interview, I'm like, what's the training budget? What does that look like? If we buy a new technology, are you including training in that? And really prioritizing the companies that say, yeah, that's what we do. But back then, it's a school system, no money. we gotta get on YouTube University. But I definitely think it ebbs and flows, and just trying to be proactive when you're in these conversations and you're hearing like, hey, we're buying this new technology, and then just trying to be a little proactive and doing some research, getting on YouTube, Udemy if they have a course for it, and instead of waiting until the technology is there and it's time to implement it, trying to do a lot of that research up front. So I definitely saw some engineers who would just wait until the project's kicking off and now they're like, oh, I gotta go learn this.
What is it? It is so much to learn. Like, I'm even confused at where to start. Like, I knew that I wanted to go for my CCNP, but then when I started this job, it's like completely different. Like, since it's their own stuff, it's like, oh, you don't necessarily need that anymore. But I'm like, for my sake, for me to feel like I'm at least learning and understanding the basics and going through everything, I want to go through those certifications. But I'm like, okay, they have completely different technologies. They're more expanded. What do I do? So yeah, I definitely understand like going through that. This company's doing something different, and then picking one that aligns with your personal goals is definitely helpful, because I can see how studying something completely different versus what's going on at work can cause so much confusion.
I also think that what is available now that wasn't back then when I was starting was just all of this information online, on Twitter and YouTube. There are so many content creators just talking about tech and building a career plan and even networking specifically. So I'd really just take some time to really think about where you want to go in the next 3 to 5 years, and then kind of build your plan off of that, and kind of, leave room to experiment and figure out like, okay, I thought I wanted to do this. I really don't like it. But there has to be a balance between having room to try something and not like it versus getting shiny object syndrome, which I think a lot of people who are active on Twitter suffer from, because every like few months is another hot cert.
Yeah.
And I have people like DMing me like, oh, like Salesforce is hot. Should I be studying that? I'm like, you said you wanted to be a network engineer. Why are you studying Salesforce? Beyond like needing to know it for maybe if your job uses it, you don't need it.
What is it? Yeah, the shiny object is so real, because it's like people who are joining the tech industry, when it comes to they're just trying to get the highest pay. It comes down to like, you're gonna get distracted if your main thing is money. Like when cloud stuff got really popular, it's like, what cert is gonna make me the most money? Keep going after that, keep going after that. And it's just like, there could be a different cert that's, edging up on the pay scale every other week. And it's like, Are you gonna keep trying to learn so many different things at one time, or what is it gonna be? So picking one, sticking to it for a while, definitely agree with that.
Yep.
So
and figuring out what technologies complement each other. Like being a network engineer, you can literally go from anywhere, because networking is one of the fundamental skills you need to know. You need to know networking in cloud. You need to know networking in cybersecurity. So I think if you're starting there, and you have that foundation, you can kind of really just pay attention and figure out like, okay, where do I want to pivot to? Do I want to pivot into security? And you can kind of build up this just kind of like hodgepodge of skill set. So to just be a better even network engineer. Like people always say network engineering is going away, and it's definitely not. But you can take elements of, what do I need to know from security? What do I need to know about cloud? What do I need to know about automation? And just kind of build that tool set, that skill set up. And then figure out like, okay, I've tried some security, I've tried some cloud, I've tried some automation. I'm going to go this way. And because you've kind of studied a little bit, I discourage people from like going directly into, getting certs when some new technology comes out. Like watch some YouTube videos, do some labs, find some of the free resources that the vendors have, and then just try it out before you commit to, all right, I'm gonna go get the solutions architect because this list that came out said I can make 200K.
Like that was some really good advice, really, because it's just in the tech industry you can definitely do so many things. Like there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of different specialties. So coming into it, having an idea of what you do in mind, like the free resources, I strongly suggest people take advantage of, because of the fact of like, if you don't enjoy like doing it when it's free, are you sure you're going to enjoy doing it when you pay it for it?
Right.
Because it's just like that'll be your day to day, and it's just it can try to show you your points where it's like, okay, say I do a lab on networking and you realize, oh, that's not really for me. Like I don't really like it, not really enjoyable. And then you go and do like a security lab, like there's, what was it called? I think it's Code Academy, not a Code Academy. It was this other website that is pretty new, but it focuses on IT security and it teaches you the fundamentals. It goes through kind of like modules, but it's all free. You kind of just have to complete modules to or like earn some points and stuff to just go to the next one. But it leads you into like blue team, red team, stuff like that. So test out the free resources and just get a feel for it. Like you don't want to spend probably maybe up towards like 400 something for a certification and you don't even enjoy the work. Especially if it's your own money. But
Right.
what is it? So what's your next steps now in your career?
So right now I'm really focusing on just kind of building up my routing skills. I'm in a role right now that requires a lot of like BGP knowledge. So that's what I'm focusing on right now. And then from there, getting my CCNP and then pivoting more to focus on network security.
Okay, so how did you come to the kind of like the conclusion that you want to do network security or focus
I
more
really
on that?
enjoy it. I've been in several roles where I've worked on various network security projects, and it's super interesting. I feel the same way I felt when I was sitting in the auditorium hearing that there are people that make the internet work. I'm really curious. I kind of started going down a rabbit hole of what I want to do in security, and I was all over the place. I was very much like the people on Twitter, just like there's so many different things you could do. And I just had to like slow down and just remind myself like, okay, here's the skill set I already have. And I'm just building upon this. So let me focus on strengthening the skill set I have from doing network security projects and working with products like Cisco ICE. And then use that to kind of transition over and then figure out where I want to go from there, instead of trying to like map out, well, do I want to do like, do I want to be a red team? Do I want to do penetration testing? It's just so many things you can do. And I think sometimes, especially after you've been in the industry for a while, you have to really like look at your existing skill set when you're planning any type of transition. Look at your existing skill set and say like, okay, what can I build upon to make this transition a little bit easier while I figure out what else I want to do.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely smart. it's easier to kind of start where you're at there than like build everything completely from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel you on that one. That's a good, I like how you planned that out for yourself. So as we ease into like the final minutes of the podcast, what are some things that you feel like need to change within the industry?
I really feel like I would love to see a lot of things change. But I guess I'll give my top three. From an educational standpoint, I'd really like to see vendors redo their certification programs. So instead of having certifications like expire, I would really like to see vendors implement more of a like continuing education credit thing. And I think Cisco does this now with the CCIE, but I would really like them to trickle that down to the other certifications as well. So you're not just, oh, my certification expired, I gotta renew it. Especially when I've taken tons of Cisco training over the years, and it would have been great to have like gotten credit for that instead of my certification expiring. So that's one. I'd really like to see continued improvements on just diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really specifically for women and Black women in tech, just continued growth with making us feel comfortable and welcomed and heard and valued in the tech spaces that we're in. And then from a social media standpoint, I think it's wonderful that there are so many people now talking about tech, and kids can hop on Twitter and be like, hey, I'm interested in tech, can someone help me? I would really just like to see more of that happening, and more people putting themselves out there like you're doing with this podcast, because we need it. Definitely, we definitely need it. It really helps when you can find somebody who looks like you doing what you're interested in. It really helps with that, just mentally, like being able to see, like, okay, like you mentioned, you found me and messaged me, and now you're like a network engineer. Like, that's really cool, and I really want more people. I want people to continue doing that.
What is it? Diversity in the industry shows that it's possible for anybody who is looking to start, because there have been many times where people are deterred from joining something simply because they don't see anybody who looks like them.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes that one person that's just like, okay, I'm going to be the first to help lead others in. So I like what you're doing, especially because it definitely helped me. I really appreciate that. It's just like, you're just doing what you already like to do. And that just showed me, like, okay, there are some of us out here. So
Yes.
it's definitely possible. Because in my class, I was the only girl. And it just felt like, man, are there any out there? There's somebody. But it really did help progress me into the field, have me at least help me build some more confidence in here, where it's just like, okay, there are people that look like me. I can keep pushing. I can keep going. And, as you go along, you find even more people. You kind of, and it's just like, we all know, know we've been looking for each other too. So, it's just like, it's very, I would say it provides a sense of comfortability that it's just like, yeah, I can do this, and confidence. Yep. So, when you spoke about the continuing education credits, like, I do think that companies should, like, vendors should definitely do more with that. Like, even for CompTIA, you gotta pay like $50 each year to keep your certifications pretty much active. You can stack them, so that still keeps them active as well. But if you don't stack, you still have to pay. Or this is what I had to figure out, because you have to do the continued education like requirements, which may be like attending somebody's course or something like that, but you still have to pay to keep them up. And I'm like, it's like, it costs more than the certification at this point. So that seemed like a new model, because when I first got mine, I was in high school for like my Network Plus, and then like I let it expire because I had got my CCNA. So it was just like, what do I value more at that point?
Right.
But it also showed me, okay, there are things, and there are kind of some stipulations that you have to go through to keep it up. But oh yeah, so what is a motivating and insightful quote that has helped you throughout your journey?
A motivating and insightful quote. I'm not really sure. I don't really have a motivating and insightful quote, but something my first manager told me was, there's no such thing as stupid questions. If you don't know something, don't let anybody make you feel bad for not knowing it. You will spend more time trying to hide the fact that you don't know it, and that will cost you more time and energy than just saying, hey, I don't know this, I need help, I've never heard of that, what does that mean? And I've always tried to keep that in mind. And I think it's definitely helped me, and definitely gotten me like a lot of respect from people I've worked with, because I'm the first one to say, I have never heard of this. What does this even mean? And then just really, I think when people see someone do that, it empowers them to just kind of also speak up and feel comfortable with saying, you know what, I don't know. So
that is really helpful. Like, I even had to come to terms with that, because it's like in my family, you ask a question that they feel is stupid, they're looking at you sideways. But it's just like when I go to work, they're just like, ask what you need to ask. I'm over here asking a million questions because all this stuff is new. So I definitely really, your manager was talking good. They were because it really is helpful to just ask, especially if someone knows about it, they can give you, instead of you taking like a whole week to try to figure something out, you can figure it out within a day just by asking somebody. It definitely does save time.
And now my approach is I'll do some quick research now and say, all right, I looked this thing up. I don't know what this means. Or here's what I've read. Can you expand on it? But before, I would just be like, hey, I don't really know. Do you mind taking, a few minutes to talk me through it? And within that conversation, I'd be like, okay, cool. Do you know where I can go look for more information about this? And then just going and doing additional research if it was necessary. Sometimes people would just be like, hey, all right, come here. Let me show you. Let's just take 30 minutes and I'll walk you through this.
Like, that is really helpful to have that confidence to just ask, because we all need to just ask. But thank you for coming on today's podcast, and I really appreciate you. I'll make sure to include her links and everything in the show notes so you can connect with her and follow her on social media. And I'm glad you guys tuned in and gave some knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology, and hopefully that your path into the tech industry leads you well. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a good day.